Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this very special day, which is dedicated to recognize the immense contribution that our teachers, our gurus, and educators make in our lives. Let me start with expressing admiration and gratitude for all the volunteer teachers of eVidyaloka who've changed the lives of thousands of students in rural India with their commitment and dedicated remote teaching. Today's conversation is titled Head to Heart. And what a beautiful title it is. This perfectly captures the journey of our guest, Sumit Ghosh, founder of Ujjivan Small Finance Bank Limited and Ujjivan Financial Services Limited. Sumit Ghosh's journey in providing financial services to the working poor is not only inspirational, but also legendary when it comes to financial inclusion. Sumit, thank you so much for being our very first guest on Head to Heart series. And, my first question is, of course, around the pandemic. At this moment, we are perhaps seeing a crisis like none other in modern history. A global pandemic that is radically changing economies, countries, and human behavior. As a leader with so much experience and seeing all kinds of varied human natures and lives, what, according to you, has been the biggest learning for all of us and humanity from this pandemic?
Thank you, Manisha, for a very generous introduction. First of all, I want to tell you that teachers have a special place in my heart because my mother was a teacher. She taught in schools, and then later on she did her B.Ed, and she taught teachers the rest of her life, So
wow.
It's a very important part, teachers really have a very special place. Now, as far as the pandemic is concerned, we have all the standard stuff. We started with, suddenly we loved a clean environment. That was one positive thing which came out of this pandemic, right? And then we figured that, public health care is so important for us, and in India, public health care, it's a disastrous shape. Then, of course, social security for the poor, right, which is absent. And, it goes on. These are the standard things which all of us realize. There are about half a dozen of those things we realized. And basically, we need to figure out how we handle that in the future in India if it is going to become, a great country. You cannot be a great country without these basic things, But I think for me, the most important lesson was, when I was a child and I moved to Calcutta after my father died, I had one of my friends. He came from a very affluent family, and even though they were very affluent, they came from actually originally migrated from Bangladesh, East Pakistan at that time. And so his father had a saying in Bengali which says, "Ei aase, ei nai," means it is there today, it's there now, but it may not be there tomorrow, right? Or in the next minute. So life is so uncertain, that I think this pandemic made it very clear to us because, I worked all my life. At the 70 years of age, I retired. Financially, I thought I was secure. My family was taken care of, I'd done, all the things in life in terms of professionally, but suddenly everything changed, in 1 minute, kind of thing. So I think personally for me, that was, and that is true for a lot of people, It's not just that I can get COVID tomorrow or something. That is not what bothers me, But the entire life changes, Suddenly your security, financial security may not be there, So that is, I think, the biggest lesson for me, that you should never be sort of complacent. What is there just now may not be there the next minute. Yeah.
I think life being very transient, and for us to all enjoy what we have today has been, I think, so for me, the biggest learning. In fact, you talked about us not forgetting, and I hope we don't forget everything that we've learned from the crisis, because human minds also forgets very soon. We might just forget when things revert back to normal, but I hope not. And talking about some memories when the lockdown began, Mr. Ghosh, migrant workers faced probably the worst crisis in India's cities in the first 2 months of the lockdown. They're now returning back to cities for work slowly and steadily with the sowing season over. At Ujjivan, that's been the big mandate for you. How do you reach financial inclusion to the urban poor? What is your own thought on how do we
So,
not forget the crisis and make their lives better this time around?
So, the first thing when that happened, because we have a foundation also, which is a sister organization called Parinam. What we did was immediately, and with the volunteers from Ujjivan, organized basically food relief, basically giving ration for about 7 days to each family, That was the first reaction, to actually provide them food, because they were basically without food, and that was the first, and we've done that in a series in terms of now we are going to do the fourth round, even though because people still don't have jobs, etc., and they still need this kind of support, this basic support. So that is, I think, the way we handle it. The other thing, as far as Ujjivan is concerned, we have a lot of customers in among the urban poor. Fortunately, the Reserve Bank gave them the moratorium. So actually, we interacted with them and tried to figure out what their issues are, what their problems were. But it was not that we went there to collect money or anything. So for the first 3 months, we completely, that's something which, other than providing this food relief and just keeping in touch with the customers and trying to figure out what their issues were and how to solve the problems, this thing. And then slowly we started actually those who we could give them repeat loans, who had some kind of an activity, and we could give repeat loans. We started that kind of work. And some of them started repaying, etc., and that's how it's going. But very frankly, I have seen a lot of crises in my life. I'm over 70 years old, right? This is a crisis. This kind of crisis we've never seen in my lifetime. And what we see is, even though there is a moratorium, if you remove the moratorium screen, we'll find a lot of people who have not paid us for last 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, etc. And we know from our history in banking that anyone who cannot pay who have not been able to pay 3 installments, for them to catch up is extremely difficult, right? So it is a frightening kind of scenario, because we have in the banking sector, there is a huge amount of people who have dues who are like that, and who have not paid for 5, 4, 3, 2 months, right? Fortunately, the Reserve Bank has given us the flexibility to able to restructure their loans or reschedule their loans. So what we need to do in the next 3, 4 months is go talk to them, and figure out what's the situation, how long will they take to come back to normal in terms of jobs, business, etc. And based on that, restructure their loans, And fortunately, because the RBI has given us that dispensation, pardon me?
You're saying work closer with them and not just, there's not probably one solution for
Right,
everybody. Just work
right.
empathetically
You
and
have
work closer with them.
to customize. Yeah. Of course, there'll be a lot of people who have lost their business permanently or lost their jobs permanently. They will not be able to repay, right? So you'd have to write off their loans. So though that's the kind of work I think going ahead, but this kind of pandemic and the economic impact will be there for at least 2 to 3 years. You know, it's not going to disappear overnight. Yeah.
Disappear overnight. So we have to brace ourselves, and I think as civil society and government together, we have to do a lot more work. Let's move on to educating our young ones. I mean, the coronavirus outbreak has, as we all know, shut down school systems across cities, towns, villages, just everywhere across the world, in fact. And, you know, Mr. Ghosh, while the well-off schools have reinvented the wheel on remote and e-learning very quickly, both the urban poor and rural children, it is a huge struggle. They don't even have a basic instrument to study on, right? We are able to provide our children laptops and iPads, but they don't even have a mobile phone, a smartphone to look at or receive that education. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, how we're having a lot of conversations around it, but there are very few organizations like eVidyaloka which have really been able to reinvent the wheel and reach that education, isn't it?
So I think, you know, I mean, what's going to happen is in the future, there's going to be a combination of actually physical class, this thing, and this remote learning through the way eVidyaloka was developed. You know, initially they had, which is still continuing, which is they set up the TV at the school and teach the students through volunteers, you know, in cities, etc. So that is, again, you know, something very novel, and that is going to continue. I think they have now developed also through using smartphones, you know, where they individually, you know, teach the students using smartphones. But as you said, there are not too many people who have smartphones. So they've also developed the fact that many of them have TVs at home. Most people have TV at home. So use the TV also. And there are actually eVidyalokas there, and there are a number of other institutions also building up this kind of capability. But ultimately, it will be a combination of this digital type of learning and physical learning, you know, which is going to be there. And the thing is, you know, I mean, we'll have to see, I think by the time vaccination has an impact in India, it will probably be end of next financial year, right? Not this financial year, end of next financial year, right? Even if you were lucky and you get a vaccine by March of next year, it'll take at least 1 year to vaccinate 1.6 billion people, etc. So till then, this kind of combination will continue. And after that, you know, it will still be there, the digital and the kind of learning systems which eVidyaloka has developed, it's still going to be there, but it will be more, you could supplement it more with the physical, the traditional school system, etc.
Traditional school.
So I think this is what is going to develop.
So I think what is happening is that parents are clamoring to send back children to school. And like you rightly said, that we could probably be hitting the end of next financial year before the vaccine is available to 1.6 billion people. We will probably have a hybrid model where, you know, you will use digital mediums. I mean, for example, eVidyaloka's response to the crisis has been pretty quick and result oriented. They've now completely turned around to asking volunteers from laptops and computers and share them with those children, either on a smartphone or television. So that's been a big turnaround. And I think NGOs have done a fabulous job, not-for-profit organizations. But let me also come to this, you know, another big learning which the pandemic has thrown up, which is the inequalities of the world. It's literally, it's split wide open, isn't it? what is your sense in terms of philanthropy to action, putting philanthropy to action at a very different scale than ever before? So I know lots of organizations, NGOs came forward to help extend help. Individuals came out. But do you think we are doing enough in our country, Samit, or do we need to do much more? As a country, what do you feel about where we are on
No,
philanthropy?
I mean, we need to do much more. There's no doubt about that, And, so we need to figure out what are the practical things we can do. In fact, today, this morning, we were having a discussion with Vijay Mahajan. I don't know if you know Vijay Mahajan. He is actually the father of microfinance in India. And one of the things he suggested, which is very interesting, using technology, is that you don't just depend on the very rich. Okay, there are a lot of middle class people like us, and we can also contribute. Okay, so let's say if there is a small business enterprise, right? Let's say the laundry where I send my clothes, that guy has disappeared, and my second formal trouser has also gone with that, right? So I am left with one formal trouser in my life now, this thing. But if someone, for him to restart the business, he doesn't need that much, right? And okay, if we can set up a system where a middle class person says, okay, I want to support this guy, right? I will guarantee that person, instead of giving cash, I will guarantee, let's say, 100,000 or 2 lakhs, right? For him to resume the business. And there'll be other smaller business. It may be 50,000. It may be this thing.
Right.
But, where P2P systems are there in technology, where individual can lend to another individual through using technology. Here, an individual could give, a middle class person could give a guarantee instead of cash, right? To this, for this business enterprise to resume. So I think that was an excellent idea, so that, there are a lot of things we have to do, as we said, we have to set up a public healthcare system. Yesterday, I was listening to Kiran Shaw, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. If you set up a public healthcare system, that will not only provide that service, but it will also provide employment to a huge number of people, right? If you have to have a public healthcare system across India, which is effective, right? So those are the things we have to do, right? Social security system we have to develop. We have the infrastructure because we have the Aadhaar and all that, everything, But I think immediately as an individual, we are talking about philanthropy. You can talk about middle class if we can do a P2P guarantee rather than person having to shell out cash, right? You can give a guarantee, whether it's 50,000, it's a lakh or 2 lakhs, for a lot of these small businesses to resume business. Right. Because those are the people actually which employ people, and provide the bulk of the employment for the whole country. It's not the big companies. The big companies are automating and putting robots and all that, right? So that could be a good idea to support the system here in India.
So you're saying that lay the network.
There are a lot of things. I'm just giving you an example.
I'm sure we can do many, many more things. But yeah, and we need to do them. I think what the pandemic has taught us is that philanthropy is not just for the rich. If you want to, if you've got more than what you need today, and for a comfortable living, then there is so much more that you can put your money to use to. And if not money, then just like eVidya Loka, you have teachers who are volunteering from thousands of miles away and teaching children. Thank you very much for joining me on this delightful conversation. I know we talked about many things, but everything is relevant today, and I'm sure that the audience and all those participants who joined us would have enjoyed this session with you.
Thank you, Manisha. This has been my privilege.